Ever since Mohammed Hijab had Bart Ehrman on his podcast, apostate prophet David Wood and many Christian apologists have been on what can only be described as a mass public relations / damage limitations exercise to save Christianity's face. Christian apologists have a strange fear of Bart Ehrman because they know he's said many things in the past that support Islam and undermine their religion.
I don't think that the historical Jesus considered himself to be a divine being at all.
So it's no accident that apostate prophet booked Bart Ehrman straight after he was on Mohammed Hijab's podcast, and with biased leading questions, he got Bart Ehrman to apparently corroborate Christianity while invalidating Islam. If only they could get Bart Ehrman to say that Jesus was crucified.
Can we be sure about the crucifixion of Jesus and whether he was indeed crucified?
Right. I know in Islam the teaching is that he was not actually crucified. I think on a historical basis, Jesus was absolutely crucified.
Yay! They thought they'd done it. Phew. The Bart Ehrman tornado had come and gone. Christianity had been saved, and all was good again in the world. Or so they thought. They planned. But so did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Despite their best efforts to pull the wool over everybody's eyes, the truth would come out like a lion. And boy, did it come roaring out. And this time, Christian apologists could do nothing about it. Bart Ehrman is about to say, you'll hear in a second, the Christian doctrine of atonement, i.e. Jesus, the God, dying for people's sins. By the way, the most significant belief of the Christian doctrine, remember, there is no Christianity without this idea, is the biggest problem for Christianity. And heavyweight Christian theologians, he personally knows, can't really explain it, that it makes no logical sense. And many theologians acknowledge this fact and consider it an utter embarrassment.
Very, very sophisticated theologians who teach at places like Harvard and Yale, who are not, they are not like they're very intellectual, philosophically trained human beings. Who are, deeply philosophical in the regular philosophical traditions, who will regularly say that the doctrine of the atonement is the biggest problem with Christianity.
That the doctrine of the atonement is the biggest problem with Christianity.
And why does Christ have to die?
And why
does Christ have to die? Yeah. They can't explain it. They can't explain it. The reality is that it's a bit of an embarrassment for a lot of theologians, because the reality is that it's a bit of an embarrassment.
Wow. That's like, well, damning. I don't think there's any coming back from that kind of beatdown. Oh man, it gets worse. It really does.
When my son does something wrong, when he disobeys me, I don't tell him that I have to kill his cat now to forgive him. I'm sorry, you got this cat here, and somebody's got to die, so I'll take the cat instead of you. So I kill this cat. It's like, what? No. Why can't you just say, okay, sorry, yeah, okay, okay, I forgive you. Yeah.
Bart Ehrman then goes on to say how he thinks the whole atonement narrative is basically, well, a fabrication, made up after Jesus' so-called death.
But is this what God does to the people he favors? He has them tortured to death? Why did God do that? So they had to have a reason for God doing that. Well, he must have killed him not because of anything he did. He's the one that God adored. So it must have been he died for other people's sins. And so these are people living in a sacrificial culture, that the way you appease God is by sacrifices. And so if Jesus didn't die because of anything he did wrong, maybe he was a sacrifice. Well, he was a sacrifice, then his sacrifice, somehow you have to accept the sacrifice for yourself And so you've got to believe in the sacrifice. And so it works backwards to the doctrine of an atonement that's made necessary because Jesus did die and he was God's favorite. And you've got to explain how those two things relate to each other.
Let me tell you what he's really saying. Imagine you had a time machine. You could go back to the exact historic period of Jesus being crucified. No one in Palestine would have believed that Jesus the man was A, a god, and B, he was dying for the world's sins. And if you thought that was bad...
they're trying to figure it out. Like, how can Christ be God if God's God and the Spirit's God? But we got one God? How's that work? And the way they did it, the way these modalists did it, is they said, look, the way I put it for myself is, at the same time, I am a son, and I am a father, and I'm a brother. There's only one of me, but I'm in 3 different relationships, and God's like that. So that view didn't win out, but also the view that there are 3 separate gods didn't win out, because you can't have that. We're monotheists, and so they end up with this kind of this Trinity mystery thing where you got 3 persons but only one God.
Yeah, no Trinity either. So, what do we know about Bart Ehrman's real views on Christianity and not the spin version our Christian apologists try to put out there? Well, the central tenets of Christianity today: Jesus is God, God is a Trinity, Jesus died for everyone's sins, are all later developments. Wow. In other words, they're lies. If you didn't know, now you know.